Hey, what up squad? In this video, we finally find that fender water leak as well as patch that giant rust hole on the floor pan. Now let's get this thing started. For those of you guys who are new to this series, this video is part 3 of the vinyl floor installation for the Tacoma. And in the previous videos, here's what we've done so far. We've removed the old carpet and also removed the rust rot and treated the existing metal that's still good on the floor pan. There was that ant colony that we discovered under the driver's side fender, and we used a shop vac and a screwdriver to suck them all out. We found the general area where the water was leaking from and used a seam sealer to seal up all of the holes that we did find. Now if you want to watch the finer details of those 2 episodes, they'll be linked in the description below. In this video series, we ultimately have 4 goals, guys. Number 1 is to find that fender leak and seal it. Number 2, we repair that rust hole and patch it and make sure it's water sealed. Number 3, we lay down the sound deadeners. And then number 4, which is to lay down the vinyl floors as flat as possible. Now this work definitely became a little bit complicated because those 4 goals I still wanted to push forward without waiting too much time sitting for things to cure, to dry, or to test fit and cut and all that stuff. So I did do my best to push on all those 4 goals in parallel so that I'm not wasting too much time. But in order to keep from jumping back and forth too much, we are going to address those issues one at a time in this video series from here forward. So with that, we'll start with addressing that fender water leak. Now let's get to the truck. Now we can test whether or not the water is penetrating through and still leaking into the footwell. Here goes nothing. After this testing, she freaking leaked, guys, and it's effing frustrating. And I'll save you that frustration, but we did eventually find the water leak. Now let's talk about the areas of water penetration real quick, guys. This area here was eaten away by that ant colony, and the underside of this drip edge actually wasn't sealed properly at all either, so I had to seal that. There are 2 rivets here, and the top one I sealed right away because I saw it from the top when I was doing my inspection, but the bottom rivet hole I didn't catch it until I looked from under this direction, and then I caught that the second time I did the water penetration testing. And then here was another rivet hole that wasn't properly sealed. So this repair done by the body shop, even though it looked good from the outside, the inside, they really cut a lot of corners. So definitely make sure you guys do your inspections properly when you get your used car, because you will get some issues when it's not properly done. Now let's descale all of this surface rust, and we'll clean it up and use some rust converter. Now we can power wash this area down and let it dry. We can use a leaf blower to speed up the drying process. And we can also use the compressed air gun to get into the nooks and crannies. Now we can hit these areas with a rust converter.
6 hours later.
So as you can see, all the brown rust has turned to this iron phosphate. Now we could clean it up with some alcohol so we can get it ready for the primer. Alright guys, now let's cover it up with that rusty metal primer.
The next morning.
Alright guys, look at that. All done, cured, and it's hardened. I did wipe this down with alcohol real quick this morning, let this cure overnight, and now we're ready for some paint. Wow guys, look at that. That repair looks great. and I'm confident this will last a very long time. And I'm really not concerned about the brush streaks because this whole thing will be hidden by the fender and the inner wheel well liner. Now all we gotta do is let this thing cure and reinstall that front fender, and this job is basically done.
8 hours later.
Now let's reinstall this fender. So 3 10mm bolts up top. There's also 3 10mm bolts behind here. And this one has 2 10mm bolts up top and 2 10mm nuts down low. Now let's pop in this fender liner. And these are all 10mm screws along the top and on the inside. We install only the screws on the inner side. Now let's pop in this fender flare. Now we could put in 10mm screws that goes on the fender flare at the bottom, which sandwiches that inner wheel well liner. Now that we've resolved that fender water leak, we can move on to the floor pan. And at this point in time, the primer and the paint on both the floor pan and the patch has already been dried and cured. So here's our repair panel, guys. We'll set it basically just like that. I'll mark it out so we know exactly where she's supposed to sit. And we'll also mark out areas where we can drill holes without damaging the parts underneath. So I'm gonna drill a hole in this general area, this general area. I'm gonna avoid along the fuel line area here. I know this is like the transmission tunnel, so definitely drill a hole here and here. And this outside here, I know we have a good area past the frame that we can drill into, so that's what we'll do. And that's eventually what it's gonna look like. So clean up all these edges. So here's the plan, guys. I'm going to apply the seam sealer real thick around the perimeter here and much thicker on the bottom. And once I do that, I'll tape this whole thing down onto the floor and then basically just match drill and rivet in 6 different points to keep this thing solidly on there. So I'm also going to go on the outside perimeter of our plate so that it's sealed both the inside and the outside. I used painter's tape to hold down the one side to keep it down while I drilled the top right corner. Then I used a pin punch to start a good spot for drilling. I used an aluminum rivet to make sure the hardware doesn't corrode. Now we don't have the visibility or the access from the opposite side, so I made sure I put plenty of seam seal so that it somewhat oozes out from the inside and the outside. As you saw from the previous shots, the location is tight in terms of clearances, and there's too many other lines and hoses in the way. So that looks really good, guys, as far as repairs go. It's definitely not perfect, but it is better than having a giant hole there and rust. So we were able to address that and protected the area, and we seam sealed the hell out of the hole there, so there should be no water that gets in through that penetration. But as insurance, I am going to seam seal around the top of the perimeter here, as well as take care of that little tear there. So let's do that now. So there's the final repair, guys. Very happy with how it turned out. And for now, we'll have to let it sit and cure overnight before I put any of the sound deadener on this floor region. That way we can ensure that this thing is completely dry and completely solid.
Early the next morning.
Alrighty guys, we press onwards. Let's keep laying down more of the sound deadener on this driver's side footwell. Ooh wee guys, this thing looks so good. Ooh wee. We'll definitely have to hit this with some B-roll. I'm so happy to finally have that fender water leak put to bed. That was such a big pain in the ass, guys, I'm not gonna lie. Now don't worry guys, I did do a very thorough water testing for that area in the frame prior to closing up the fender. So I am confident this thing will not leak anymore. Now this project series is probably one of the more complicated ones I've had to tackle so far. It's not like working on the clutch where there's already a shop manual. This one I had to figure out on the go as I did the stuff. So I hope you're enjoying the series, and make sure you guys watch part 4 because we do get into more complicated, more creative problem solving when it comes to laying down that vinyl. So that's it for this video guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you smash that like, subscribe, and hit that bell too while you're at it. And until next time, peace out, everybody.
Yeah.